Good morning, juniors. We're going to be talking in this video about analyzing an author's diction. I find that diction is one of the literary devices that people most often want to use when they're writing a rhetorical analysis or literary analysis essay, but often don't use it fully correctly. So this week we're going to be really delving into how to write interesting analysis about an author's diction and when words are notable enough that it's actually worth pulling them out and talking specifically about them in the context of the author's diction. So a lot of times when I'm reading student writing, I end up reading before I get there. What is diction, you might be asking? It's an author's specific word choice. So anytime you say the author uses some particular type of diction, you're saying that there's something interesting or something notable about the types of words that the author is using. So I often see examples in student writing that look something like this. The author uses diction to communicate blah, blah, blah. This is one of my single least favorite sentences to read in student writing. And the reason why that is because when you write the author uses diction, diction means words. So you're just saying the author uses words. All authors use words. That's not interesting at all. That's like just a fact that if you're reading a text, the author is using words. That doesn't actually tell me any specific choice that this author is making in order to accomplish their purpose. So you always need to be a little bit more specific. You can put an adjective in front of diction like harsh diction, angry diction, gentle diction, or you can just skip using the word diction at all in your topic sentence and actually talk about what's interesting about the specific word choice when you get into the analysis in your body paragraphs. So I'm going to talk through right now how to choose words for your examples of diction that are really interesting. So I've gone ahead and pulled out one of the paragraphs from Obama's speech that you wrote your essay about last week. Now, when I'm thinking about writing about an author's diction or word choice, I'm looking for words that are unusual, striking, or that form some sort of a pattern. So if it's just a standard word like big, probably not that interesting. We're looking for a word that stands out. This can be any word or words within the context of the piece, but it needs to really stand out in some way to you. Okay. We'll go ahead and read through this piece. Again, I'm looking for words that are unusual, striking, or that form some sort of a pattern. Graduating from college is a big achievement under any circumstances, and so many of you overcame a lot to get here. You navigated challenging classes and challenges outside the classroom. Many of you had to stretch to afford tuition, and some of you are the first in your families to reach this milestone. So reading through that, I pulled out two words that I thought were a little bit unusual for him to use in this context. The first one was navigated. Okay. He could have just said you took challenging classes. He chose the word navigated. That's a little bit interesting. And the second one was stretch. He could have said you had to save, you had to plan, you had to struggle. He chose stretch. Again, that word choice is specific enough that I feel like it stands out. So when I'm looking and analyzing those words that stood out to me, I'm always asking myself three questions. First, what other words could have been used? Second, what are the connotations or the associations of this word in particular? What are the other words that's related to it? And number three, how does that word support the author's message or purpose? Okay. So just to model that with these two words, let's look at navigated first over here. So it says you navigated challenging classes. Obama could have used you took challenging classes, you passed challenging classes, you struggled through challenging classes, you took advantage of challenging classes, but he chose to use the word navigated. Now, this word navigated has a bunch of different connotations. Typically, when you hear navigated, you think of ships, exploring, new and unknown things, some sort of triumph or success. You don't really use the word navigated if like the journey was a failure, right? So we have this like new and unknown and somewhat successful connotation for navigated, right? If he had just used the word past, it would have had a positive connotation, but it wouldn't have wouldn't have had this meaning of like something new and unknown that navigated adds to that. Similarly, if he had used the word struggled through, right, that doesn't necessarily have the connotation of triumph and success, right? So the word navigated has these specific connotations that Obama is calling up and reminding the reader of whenever we hear that word. So on to the next one, stretch. He could have used plan, save, skimp, struggle, right? In terms of how families work to afford tuition, right? By using this word stretch, when I hear stretch, I think of exercise. I think of something that's not totally comfortable, but that's good for you, and it makes you stronger or better in some way with physical activity. So something that I'm noticing between both navigated and stretched is that there's some element of something that's new and unknown, but good for you. Okay. So it's not totally comfortable to stretch, but it is good for you. Just like navigated, you have to come up with a way to get around someplace that's new, which is a difficult experience, but there's this connotation or this association that you are successful in doing that. So looking at the similarities between those two words, that's going to lead me into my topic sentence, which for this paragraph would look something like this. Obama begins his speech by highlighting the ways in which this group of graduates has already responded to challenging and unknown circumstances in order to convey his pride in their success. So you might notice that in this topic sentence, I didn't actually use the word diction because I didn't need to. I can be more specific by saying that he's highlighting the ways that the group has responded to challenging and unknown circumstances, right? Both navigated and stretch tell me that this was a circumstance that was challenging and unknown, and that they reacted in some way to that, right? And it also leads us towards this framework of success. So when I got into my body paragraph, once I have this topic sentence, that's where I'm now going to start using the phrasing around diction. So I might say, in one of the first sentences of the speech, Obama uses the word navigated and says that the graduates navigated through their classes. And then I'm just going to go ahead and answer these three questions. So I would literally say, Obama could have used the word took challenging classes or struggled through challenging classes, but the word navigated has particular connotations of exploring new and unknown things and being successful in doing that. And then I would explain how that actually helps to support Obama's message and purpose of showing that he's proud of the graduates in this time, right? So I might say, by using this word with these particular connotations of exploring new and unknown situations, he suggests that the graduates were able to overcome something really difficult, and were actually able to forge a new path and reach their goals in that way. Right? By using this word, he shows his immense pride in them for being successful in doing that. So that was just a quick overview of how you might write about diction. I think that these questions in particular will be really helpful for you this week. But the key thing that you want to be thinking about is looking for those words that are unusual, striking, or forming a pattern, because those are going to be the ones that are actually interesting to talk about. If you're just picking out any random words when you're talking about diction, it's going to end up being really hard to justify how those particular words are supporting the author's purpose or message. Please make sure, now that you've reached the end of this video, to fill out the mini quiz on Google Forms to show that you watched and understood the video. Feel free to watch it again if you feel like you didn't get something the first time as you're going through the quiz. That's totally fine. And I will look forward to talking to you about this more in class tomorrow.